Alright, and then for the mushroom field, like I said before, we have a grid object base. It holds the information for active and not active grid objects, so that could be mushrooms or the glyph spaces. So spawn mushrooms, this is where you put in the array of mushrooms depending on its position. So then whenever one of the critters is interacting with one of these, instead of just using the collisions from teal, you can go and call this function instead to see if that grid space is taken or not. And then for the glyph space, I've shown this before too, that it talks with the text manager to go and make a glyph space, so then it's invisible, and then the high score still puts its glyphs on top of it, but the glyph spaces, so then the centipede cannot run through the words. And for my mushroom field is a game object, and the reason for it is because I have a alarm in it, and the alarm is basically set up for the regeneration. So I set an alarm once either the centipede is destroyed or the player is destroyed. It'll set an alarm, so every 0.008 seconds it'll set off an explosion, and it also goes through the field to see what arrays need to be using. It has its own field for wounded mushroom array, and when it goes through the next one, it sets it to 0, and then it makes the counter go by 1. So basically, instead of going through the whole field once the player centipede is destroyed, it goes through the array that has all the mushrooms and null pointers, and it takes out the null pointers and the mushrooms that are not wounded, and goes through all the wounded ones and sets the health to 4 like it's supposed to, or for me it's the sprite, sets the explosion off, and it reports this score for the wounded death for every 2. That's why this counter's here also, and then sets the alarm again. And then once it's over, it sets everything back down to 0, stops the alarm, and then it continues to switch players if it's needed. And then for the mushroom regen, we can go and destroy some of these, and you'll see they'll get regenerated. And it's not from left to right, it's from top to bottom, just because that's how my field was set up in the beginning of class, and then I didn't have time to switch it from up to down to make it go left to right. And then for the scorpion, it does have a factory. All my critters have factories, and they're all the same, and like how they work, and they have a recycling pool. For the scorpion, since I'm using a mod, I'm doing a mod for every 16, so every time the scorpion moves 16 on the x-axis, it goes and checks that space that it's on, and then if it's normal, then it will tell the field controller that is pointing to the current mushroom field to poison the mushroom, and then it'll keep doing whatever it needs to. And then if it leaves the boundaries of the game, then it'll remove it from the actives list. And then for the spider, it also does not use the collision. It goes and checks the space that it's on, and then if it's not empty, then it'll go and do spider collision, and basically just sets the mushroom up to destroy from that mushroom field. So if we go through here, so we can just do this, and we can spider collision. So then whatever the float is, you change it back to the grid, and then you find it on the mushroom array, and then you destroy it. And it does not reverse left to right. which is decided here depending on what direction it's going. So if it's doing these, it's only going to go downward at this, and so on and so forth. And that also counts for these because these will set up depending on the direction. So if it's going left, then it's going to be a negative number. If it's right, it's going to be a positive, which changes how it's going on the x-axis. And then we have the flee, and the flee also does it every 16. And for the flee, I do a random number if that space is empty. So as it's going down the screen and finds an empty slot, it does a random number, and then it has a chance to spawn a single mushroom. And it's just like how the spider collision function was before, that it changes it to a grid coordinate and spawns the mushroom. And then for the critter generators, I'm going to show the scorpion spawner. And the scorpion spawner goes and gets its wave settings. Gets it from the wave controller that goes and gets all that information from the text file. And then every time a wave's about to start, it sends it new wave settings. So then when the scorpion's starting, if it's true, then you'll start off the timer, but if it's false, it's not going to do anything, so the timer will never go off. So then if it's never going off, then we never have to test for the alarm.